The mistake that I made in my head was thinking that it is like a black and white, night and day, on and off switch when it comes to addiction. Are they using or are they not? If they're drinking, this is a problem. If they're sober, all the problems are gone. That is one mindset that really, really hurt. Hi, guys. Welcome to A Little Help for Our Friends, a podcast for people with loved ones struggling with mental health. Welcome back, Little Helpers. It's season 7 of A Little Help for Our Friends. And today we're going to be talking about, I keep saying we, so weird, but I will be talking about how to support a loved one in addiction recovery. So someone who's had an addiction, a substance use disorder, or really these principles apply to any mental illness. And how do you support them when they are actually getting sober, getting on the right track, and things are a little rocky? But before I dive into that, I just want to say thank you, really. It's been amazing. Maybe it's because I've been doing this on my own now without my former co-host, Jacqueline. Maybe it's because I'm calling out to you guys, but I'm getting a lot more messages from you saying that this has been helpful, that you found all the topics really illuminating, and that it's maybe given some insight or some peace into something that you're going through, or given hope for treatment or things to get better. So I really appreciate that. I love talking to all of you. I'm literally in a room alone, talking to a void, to a camera. So to see that I'm actually talking to someone, it means everything to me. And this is why I'm doing this, to help you. So again, if you're listening to this, if you're new, if you've been here for a while, write on the comments, either in YouTube or Spotify. I try to get to them. All the messages kind of go in different places, but I try to read what you guys are saying, and I love connecting to you. And you can always follow me on at Dr. Kibby, at DrKibby on Instagram. So that being said, I just love you guys, and I want to know what you want to hear. Like, I am very open to any questions or topics that you want to hear more about today or this year. The reason why I'm talking about supporting loved ones in addiction recovery today is a really, really exciting turn of events. So I don't know if you guys know this, but I have been building up this company program called Kulamind, Kulamind. You check it out, kulamind.com, and it's to support loved ones of people who have mental illness or addiction. So the caregivers, family members, partners of people who are struggling with intense emotions, maybe anger, struggling in depression, anxiety, or substance abuse. Because my whole mission with this podcast and Cool of Mine is to really shine the light on how people around the sick one needs help too, right? And we always talk about mental illness or addiction as like one person is sick and everyone else is like worried or whatever. But no, it's a sickness of a family or community, right? Someone doesn't suffer alone. Their suffering affects someone else, or their relationship is the sickness. So I really believe that if we want to heal mental health, we got to do it together as a group, as a community. So that's the whole mission. But this past 2 years, we've been working on Cool of Mind. And it hasn't been easy all the time. I'm still in cancer recovery. I'm still every day, like, I'm a psychologist. I'm not a businesswoman. I don't know what I'm doing. But every day we keep plugging along. We keep meeting new people. Keep growing. We keep reaching new audiences, learning more. And there's something really exciting that I haven't told really anybody. But it's like a dream come true. Cool of Mind got a grant from the National Institute of Health, NIH, through NIDA, National Institute of Drug Abuse, yeah. We got a grant to test out a version of Cool of Mind for loved ones in addiction recovery. That is actually, like, if I could say, like, my dream came true, that's it. I got into this because my mom struggled with alcoholism. with addiction, and I've seen lots of loved ones, close family members, or friends struggle with addiction, and some have died from addiction. And the loved ones are lost. Like, I did not know what to do supporting my mom through all different stages of this addiction and recovery journey. She is at this point, I think, like, and mom, if you're out there listening, you correct me if I'm wrong, like over 10 years, maybe 15 years sober. She did the impossible. I thought she was going to die, and I thought she would never get sober. And then she did one day. So that was crazy. And that gave so much hope for what families can do if they're struggling with addiction. But like throughout the whole thing, I was lost. I was like, should I cut off contact with her? Should I force her into therapy? Should I make her go to a detox center? Should I threaten her? Like, I was a kid. I didn't know what to do. And I've always dreamt of helping more families like ours, and helping more loved ones know what to do, because the support system, anyone knows this, if you struggle with addiction or mental health, the people around you and how they treat you, how they communicate, how they understand what you're going through, what role do they have in your recovery, is huge. But it's like asking loved ones to be like first line responders, right? Like crisis managers, therapists, everything like that, with no training. So I've always wanted to support families and teach them and give them support, right? And then we got this grant. And what this means, and it's in partnership with a team at Brown University. Susan Ramsey, Dr. Susan Ramsey is the partner that we're working with, this professor who does a lot of cool research on health, which is mobile and technological and web-based digital interventions for like HIV and substance use. And she came across this grant, and we met through mutual people, mutual friends. And then together we applied for this grant. And I did not think that it was going to go through. They submitted it when the administration changed, and they were slashing budgets for the NIH, especially research. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that was a nice exercise. That would have been great, but goodbye. And then, long story short, we got the grant. And it's a really cool grant. It will be 1 year of basically piloting a version, Cool Mind Recovery. So a version of what we do and how we support loved ones already with mental illness, but applied specifically for people who have loved ones who are in the process of recovering from substance use disorder. So a dream come true. And I want to say this to all of you. If you are in recovery or are close to someone who is in addiction recovery, we actually still have spots in the study. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, this would be so cool, I'm going to put a link in the show notes, and there's only 15 spots left. And I'm saying this to you guys first before I, really blast this out to the public. I would love it if this is interesting to you, you can participate in the study and work with me directly. And what this means is the loved one and the person in recovery will do some interviews about their experience, and like in the beginning and then at the end. And in the middle, we do Cool Mind. So Cool Mind has been our program where for about 12 weeks, I teach a new skill every week, about how to communicate, how to support your loved one when there's a crisis, how to take care of yourself, right? All these like majorly helpful skills. And I'm there to support. This is actually my favorite part. I message people or meet with people one-on-one to, workshop, how do you text this person? Or to talk about like, yeah, something upsetting happened. What was this like for you? Or how to understand what's going on, right? So I'm there kind of being like a coach 24/7. I don't want to promise that because I was asleep. But my whole thing is giving these loved ones skills and emotional support and know that I'm there thinking through these hard challenges together. So if this is interesting to you, check out the link. Say that you've heard about this through Kibby, and maybe you could get one of the 15 spots that are left. So please participate. I would love to see you guys and meet you guys and work with you. But in spirit of that, I wanted to talk about the role of loved ones in addiction recovery, and specifically, what are the things that loved ones can do to really support someone who's recovering from addiction. I will say at first that you might be like, talk to me about strategies for dealing with a loved one who's like getting high all the time. And I have in previous episodes covered what you can do when someone is in like active use. And I'm happy to talk more about that if that's interesting to you. But that's one phase, right? And I think that loved ones, the mistake that I made in my head was thinking that it is like a black and white, night and day, on and off switch when it comes to addiction. Are they using or are they not? If they're drinking, this is a problem. If they're sober, all the problems are gone. That is one mindset that really, really hurt me, because addiction is an ongoing thing. Addiction is a journey. It's a tendency. It's a part of you. It's something that you heal from. It's something that you might come back to, right? It's kind of like trauma. It doesn't just like go away. It's something you work through. And there's the active use stage where someone is like fully drinking or fully using. And I remember when my mom was in that stage, I was obsessed. I was obsessed with the thought, she just needs to get sober. I just need to get her sober. What if we just like locked away all the alcohol and prevented her from ever drinking again? Like then all the problems would be gone. I'd finally get my mom back. And then when she did get sober, there was a couple of, first of all, it wasn't like she got sober and we're done. There were a couple of stages, right? We did an intervention, which at the time made sense, but she has since said that wasn't as helpful. But and at a time of desperation, we did an intervention and sent her to a rehab center. And she got sober then, but there was a relapse. And then, so it was like back and forth, right? It was up and down. There's this really sad moment. One of my worst memories was she had promised to quit drinking one day. And I remember coming into the kitchen and seeing her clearly drunk. And I was so upset. I was like, Mom, you promised. And she looked at me in this bleary-eyed way. And she was like, tomorrow is a new day. Even at the depths of that, she like wanted to get better, but like I could see that she didn't know how. And that was one of the most like helpless feelings. I was angry. I was sad. I felt sorry for her. I felt sorry for me. I didn't know what to do. And then she finally did get sober. Like to her credit, she worked really hard. I've told the story in another time in this podcast, but there was a moment where I thought she wouldn't make it. She had such health issues from drinking that the doctors basically told me that I had to come say goodbye to her. She survived, but we, found the right psychiatrists and support that she could become sober and stay sober and get all the be monitored and supported by all of this care team. And she worked really hard and stayed sober. It's amazing. But I thought, and I think maybe she thought, that was it. We're good. Sober. All the problems are gone. I struggled with feeling like my heart was still closed. I had so many experiences where it was like tomorrow was a new day that I was like, okay, she's sober, but like, I can't possibly be excited or hopeful or get close to her because it's all going to go away in a blink of an eye. And I can't do that anymore. I can't do that. Um, so I was hardened off by all the trauma of like hoping and then being disappointed. So I found it really hard to like be excited, be hopeful, all the things that would have been helpful to her in that moment, like to be close and be like, yeah, you got sober, now we could finally have more of a relationship. But for years after that, I found that hard to do until at some point it clicked that she's sober and staying sober. Granted, I'm saying this now, it is very possible that she will relapse at some point. I don't know. And you kind of have to live with that as a loved one. So like living with the tentative safety of the sobriety is tricky to be like, okay, things are good now, but you never know. um, and so it was hard to like match where she was, right? Like if she's excited and sober and working hard and I'm scared and pessimistic and closed off, it's almost like kind of punishing to her, right? And in her hard work. So that was surprising to me that even after the thing that we wanted, the magic wand, everything worked out, I still couldn't take that in. I was still like working through my trauma in that moment. And yeah, I think that it's a different, I think it was also different to go from like actively fighting to get her into treatment to like accepting it and then fighting for the relationship. Like, I don't think I was prepared to shift from let's stop the monster, the addiction monster, to like, okay, now the monster's gone. How do we build, I don't know, build a house is for the, but how do we build a house here? Because I think it was so long and so difficult to imagine what is life like without it, right? Like we've gotten so used to a dynamic that it had revolved around the addiction that is like, what do we do now? For example, one thing that I found really hard is like, I didn't know where to set boundaries. I didn't know how much I wanted to let her in my life and see her. This is a new person, new mom. Like I didn't know. And also sometimes you realize that the substance, the drug or the alcohol was a mask, was a band-aid, or even a solution for a deeper problem. Right? A lot of people use drugs or alcohol for self-medicating, right? So like soothing anxiety or dealing with a heartbreak or depression or loneliness, right? It's, everyone's focused on the drinking or the drugs as the problem and you got to stop and everything will be better. But then that just kind of reveals the wound that needed the Band-Aid in the first place. So I think people are surprised that when the drug goes away, the addiction goes away, there's still that problem that is now like open. Whether it's that person doesn't know how to socialize anymore because they're not drinking, or they feel deep shame, or that, like it was a way to calm down. I don't know. But for us, I think I was surprised by, I always thought that the fights that we had and the big emotions and anger and whatever was because of the alcohol, but they're still here in some ways. It's a lot better now, than before. A lot less scary. But it's not like everything's peachy. There still were some of the dynamic that hurt me is still existed after the addiction. So I was like, oh, I thought it would just be an on and off switch and I get the mom that I want or feel the safety that I want, but I can't. And that's hard. That's a hard thing for a loved one to have to sit with, especially talk to people about, because if they talk to people and it's like, oh, it's so great that they're sober, you shouldn't be upset. It's like, no, there's still some pain there and it's hard to describe. So I just want to point out how this is like a sneaky, difficult place to be in. Your loved one got sober, got clean, is in a program, joined AA, they're working the steps, they're on the right path, and yet it still feels like you can't take a breath. That is the hard part of loving someone in addiction recovery. So, again, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I know what that feels like, look at the link in our show notes. I hope there's still spots if you're interested, but there's 15 spots left in the study. And especially if you're a loved one who's like, I want to support them, I want to be there for them, and yet I'm struggling with it, please sign up for the study. Oh, a caveat is that both you and your loved one in addiction recovery need to participate in the study. So it's not like you could do it in secret, which usually in Cool of Mind, there's some people who work with me who their loved one doesn't know that they're looking for support for that relationship. But in this case, in the study, both you and your loved one in recovery will need to sign off and say yes. Okay. So what do loved ones do during addiction recovery? I'll go over 6 major things and strategies that you as a loved one can do to support someone in addiction recovery. And I'm going to summarize each one of them and kind of talk about them briefly, but this is a little preview about what we're going to do in Cool of Mind recovery in the study. I would go into depth with this and I would help you with this. But here are the things based on research that loved ones can do to help. So I'll just list them out right now and then I'll go into each one of them in more depth. So here are the 6 things that if you love someone in addiction recovery, what you can do to support them. 1 is make treatment more accessible and easier to connect to. 2, reinforce their healthy recovery sober behavior. 2, talk to them, communicate without escalating shame or conflict. 4, prepare for overdose. That one's scary. 5, protect your own safety and well-being. And 6, pay attention to the mental health issues that might have been there all along. Or just now that, the drug or alcohol is no longer in the system, that emotions and mental health can be rocky. So let me go over those 6 points in more depth. First of all, keep in mind that you as a loved one can really support their recovery, but you cannot control it. And you're not responsible for it, right? You cannot control it. That's weird. That's a weird thing to talk about because it's a weird thing to say there is a lot of stuff you can do that can make a difference, but it's not your fault if they relapse. It's not all on you. The analogy I bring up is like this. Let's say you and your loved one are hiking through the forest and you see 2 paths and you're like, oh my God, this path leads to, it's like more exciting, more scenic and beautiful, but it's like rocky and it's dangerous and there's wolves and, it's not great. And there's another path that's more boring, but it's like pretty safe. What you can do is that you can make it more likely that they take the safe path. You could point it out. You can ask them if they need help with I'm trying to, analogy is kind of falling flat right now, but if you're like, oh, I could carry your backpack over this river to the safe one, I could do that if that's helpful. You can make it nicer, right? You could be like, wow, look, the sun is hitting on the safe path, and you could point out the dangerous parts and be like, of the scary path, and you're like, oh, that one's really scary. And you could say, hey, if you go on the safe path, I am there with you. That safe path looks fun. We could talk and we could gossip and sing songs on the safe path. But if you go down the rocky path, I'm sorry, it's too dangerous. I can't go with you, right? But you're saying, All right, loved one, you can choose. I can't control which path you go down. I hope certainly you go on the safe path with me, but you're your own person and I love you and you can choose, right? So that I'm trying to highlight like the difference between like what you can do and what you really can't do, which is control their choice in going to different paths. So think about that you're not the rescuer, enforcer, or therapist or crisis manager. You are there to make that path more of a likely choice, right? The safe path. You're here to support their choices if they decide to go in the safer route. So what does that look like? Well, especially in the early stages where someone's like in active treatment, going either in a detox center, going to appointments, stuff like that, you can certainly help them with that. Tricky because sometimes it feels like you're dragging them. Like I remember my mom was on board. She like wanted to go to a couple doctor's appointments, but like I got her in the cab. I was like, "Come on, I'll come with you," and got her in the cab. She like didn't want to go. She might not even remember this, but like she was like, "I don't want to go." I was like, "Come on, I'll go with you," right? So you get help. You can't like force them to go to the doctor or get treatment, but you could help them and make all of that really confusing and difficult healthcare choices a little easier, right? It's a lot to schedule the appointments, fill out forms, make sure insurance covers it, sit there in the waiting room when they're having all these different feelings, like meet with different doctors that might be a good fit. That was a key thing for us. Like we managed to find doctors that were like a good fit for her, that like she trusted and she respected. That was really hard to do. So, and that's part of what loved ones can do is like help look around for different doctors. And then really talking to doctors and talking to your loved one about what does this look like? What does this treatment look like? Why? What makes sense for how to keep someone, leading towards a better path? Some people think, well, some people have like strong opinions, right? So, for example, harm reduction strategies like if someone is using needles, like actually swapping out for clean needles, it's still like technically using, but they're using more safely and it's like step by step. So sometimes there's methods that might be leading towards like healthier choices, but the loved ones find it hard to do. So talk to the doctors and talk to them about like what is this plan? What is this roadmap of recovery? Another example is that when being treated for opioid addiction, there are other medications to uh, soften the blow, but like make the withdrawal a little bit safer, like Suboxone or methadone, where these treatment clinics will give basically a different version of opioids to help ease the withdrawal so it's not so dangerous or painful. Um, and for loved ones, they could be like, oh, they're still using, right? Some people can be on these drugs for a very long time, right? They could be years. And so it's not like they're still on opiates, but they're in recovery. And so really understanding that process and not being like, oh, yes or no, are they using or not using? But saying, okay, what does this look like in a path to recovery? So, and then supporting that, like even just asking and learning about that is really helpful. So that's basically like when I talk about the safe path, is just making the safe path easier, like giving that person a ride if they want to go down the safe path, right? Just removing some of the friction about making choices that are healthy, like going to the doctor, engaging in treatment, staying clean, whatever. And also talking to them and their doctor about like, what if something bad happens? What if there's a crisis? What if what if they get depressed? What if they hurt themselves? What if they relapse? Who do I call and when and how, right? What are the signs that I should look for? Because at least of loved ones like me, our head is full of that. And it's like, oh, is she secretly drinking? Is she gonna have another seizure? Like I was looking out, I was trying to be like, doctor looking out for signs that they're like using or drinking again. And that could drive you nuts, right? And also your person in recovery. So really get a clear idea of a safety plan. Say, hey, therapist or a doctor or whatever, what signs should I look out for? And what do I do when I see that? So that's making effective treatment easier. The second one is reinforce healthy behavior. I probably am going to do a whole episode on this because this is really complex and important. So we've talked about enabling before. Like enabling is a word I don't like because it sounds like you are making someone use or drink, right? It's your fault. You've like, encouraged them. So a lot of loved ones beat themselves up for enabling addiction. But let's see it this way. For everything that someone does, you respond to it, right? Whether it's saying nothing, whether it's yelling at them, whether it's staying or leaving, like it's a tennis match. You are doing something in response to what they do. Some of the things that you do can reinforce, meaning reward or, take away pain or discomfort, and which would make that first behavior more likely, right? So if my dog is barking at the door, this is a common thing I talk about. My dog Mindy, she like barks at the door, especially when she hears someone on the other side. And I'm like, Mindy, stop. I go over there, I pick her up, stop barking. And somehow she's barking more. Now, every time she hears a little sound, she is like, bark, bark, bark. She used to be a silent dog. Now, my response is reinforcing her barking. I don't mean to. It's not intentional. I'm trying to get her to stop, but me picking her up, giving her attention, like all that stuff is she's like, this was good. That barking was good, right? So the important part of knowing that we are responding and we're, affecting the likelihood of that person doing that action again. I don't force or I'm not responsible for Mindy barking, but I'm certainly making it more likely because she's expecting something cool. She's expecting me to come over there and pick her up, right? So instead of reinforcing and responding with reinforcement to behaviors involved in using, you do it for you reinforce behaviors that are healthy, that are like we call recovery behaviors. So every time someone says, hey, I like, honestly, when she's not when she was actively drunk, but if she says tomorrow is a new day, reinforcing expressions of wanting to get sober, wanting to get treatment. Every time they go to the doctor, every time they like go to a meeting, or when they work a step, or when they go to a party and there's all drinks around and they decide not to, or when they go to a party and usually they just get plastered and, whatever, and they instead just had one drink, you reinforce that. And I mean by like leaning in with positive responses that they would like, that it would be motivating for them, whether it's giving attention, verbally acknowledging, spending more time with them, recognizing it, right? Like the key is knowing what is motivating for your loved one and leaning in with that response. Most of the time it's attention and connection and praise, and so those are generally good stuff, but you could really lean in. I will say that there are some clinics who have experimented with reinforcement, what is it called, token economies. So giving people prizes or money or something for staying sober. It works, like it's not the ideal because it becomes really transactional and then it gets expensive really quickly. So try to do things that are free, like lean in with love, but if that's what keeps them sober, like, and that's works for your relationship, well, by all means. Okay. 3, communicate without escalating shame or conflict. Now, there I'll again, I could also do a whole episode of this, but there are 2 main principles for communicating without escalating shame or conflict. 1, when you bring up a problem, describe it objectively. So, what tends to happen is that you saw someone like maybe go and with a drink in their hand or whatever, and you go over and you're like, how could you do that? Like, what are you gonna drink now? Are you relapsing? Right? Like, make if you come in with big accusations and assumptions and judgments, right? Like if you're thinking of yourself as a judge, that's gonna go badly, right? So instead of escalating in that way, describe the problem that you're seeing really objectively. Like, I saw you have a drink in your hand, right? Like, you mentioned that you wanted to cut down, and I saw a drink in your hand, right? Something that is almost like like a detective describing a scene of a crime. I walked in, saw you with a drink in your hand. It's something really objective. So it's not accusing, it's not making assumptions. It's just saying, hey, this is what I see with my senses. And then use an I statement. I statement basically means you are describing how you feel, your experience. If you come in, you're like, you have a drink in your hand, and you are a liar. Like, that is not going to go well. If you say, I saw a drink in your hand and I got really worried. I had thoughts of, oh no, what if, we're going down a bad path, right? If you're able to talk from your perspective and use the word I, or even describe it like, here are my feelings, it is a lot less shaming and is a lot less judgmental, and it's a lot less fiery, because you can't argue with that. I saw uh I saw the weather and I didn't want to go out. You can't argue with that. It's just objective thing, and how my reaction. Right. So even just like starting out with that's just like, it doesn't put everything on that person, but it's just like, hey, I noticed this. Here is my reaction. What do you think about it? Let's talk about it, and opening it up with a question. So those are the principles that I would say is a great form of communication, and really learning how to talk about scary things, not just be like, oh, I'm not going to mention it, but actually say, hey, I'm in this place where every time I see you with a drink in your hand, I worry. And then I'm like watching you all night. How can we figure this out together? Right? So talking about things in a way that isn't shaming. 4, prepare for overdose. Now, this is tough. And again, talking to any doctors or the ER or crisis lines to be like, when do I call for help? When do I take them to the ER? When do I take them to, a detox center? Really understanding like, okay, when is it go time? But this is mostly, the preparing for the overdose is mostly considering opioid addiction. Some other kind of overdose is less, I'm talking about in recovery. Okay. Overdose is like possible in many, many different circumstances. But in the first 4 weeks of stopping opioids, even the medications for withdrawal, like if someone stops their treatment for Suboxone or methadone, right, if they're in a clinic, the first 4 weeks are the most critical. The first 4 weeks are critical because, first of all, like opioid addiction and withdrawal needs to be done gradually. Otherwise, it's really painful. You get really sick and everything like that. But it's really tricky in the recovery period, because if someone goes off the medication, first of all, there's just like high relapse rate, right? Someone might be um, have a strong craving, it's really painful, and they might have a or strong urges to use again. But if they are titrating, like if their body is getting used to like lower amounts, or with they're getting the opioids out of their system, then using too much can really make an overdose um, likely and very lethal, right? So if someone is like, they used to use heroin or like opioids, and then they're treated with methadone for a while, they get off the medication, and their body's like, they're like kind of clean from it. It's going to be really hard to stay off of it. But if they do use that, and they might use, they might like take a dose that they were used to, like back in their, using days, they might take like an amount that they were used to, and that might kill them. Right. So I think that's actually what happened to Corey Monteith, one of my favorites. He was the star of Glee. And he like he struggled with addiction, like openly, for a while, especially opioids. And then he got clean. He might have gone to jail, but he got clean. And then he died in a hotel room because I think I think the reports are that he like relapsed, and he probably started using an amount that he was used to, and it was too much for his system at the time. So it's really, really dangerous. I also want to say that talking to a lot of my psychiatrist friends, they are all saying that fentanyl is in everything. It's laced in not only opioids and drugs like that, but like all sorts of hard drugs. Fentanyl is an extremely potent version of opioids, and just a little bit too much can kill you. So a lot of people are dying right now. So this relapse is really scary. So a couple things for you to do. Don't pressure someone to get off the withdrawal medication. If they're on Suboxone or methadone or something like that, don't be like, you've got to stop and get out. Respect that there's a treatment plan and what makes sense for them. But then have testing kits at home so that you could order them online, have testing kits, and really understand, maybe do some training, or learn how to do Narcan kits, which means that it's a kind of like, I think it's like nose spray, that if someone is going into opioid overdose, you could spray it and it could save their life. It'd be enough to like block the effects of the overdose. And all of those things are available. And if you're not even sure, if you're like, I don't know what my husband does, like, if you're not sure, err on the side of caution. Have testing kits in your house, have Narcan kits. You don't use them, you don't use them. Okay? So prepare for overdose. This is becoming like a really dark episode. 5 is protecting your own safety and well-being. This is why I made Cool of Mind. Okay, so you forget, as I was saying, you forget that you need help. You forget that this is hard on you. You forget that you have trauma symptoms. Watching your loved one overdose, taking them to the hospital, watching them scream as you take them into a detox center, that is all traumatic for you. And it's too hard to pretend everything's normal now. This is a really good time for couples therapy, family therapy, your own therapy, Cool of Mind, but a place where, or, Nar-Anon, Al-Anon, those are the support groups, part of the Alcoholics Anonymous world that is for loved ones. And they do mostly like support groups, but what Cool of Mind does, what we do differently, so we teach skills, and they more emphasize like their method, and a support group, less like learning skills. Anyway, but even just talking about how hard this is, talking about all your taboo thoughts, like even though they're sober, you still think, wow, they're an asshole sometimes. Or, man, I really actually miss times when they were drinking. They were easier in this way, right? Like all these thoughts and feelings that might be hard to communicate to them, but finding support for yourself. And not only that, just realizing that if they are changing, they're recovering. And often patients recover, but their families don't. So they are changing. They're becoming a new person. They're learning how to relate to their emotions and their life and world differently. And if you're stuck in a phase of the relationship and a version of them that's no longer here, you're going to be stuck and you're going to lose them. You're going to lose yourself. So learn what work you need to do to grow alongside them, so to speak. And then that leads into 6, being aware that of like mental health and the health of a relationship. Drugs and alcohol certainly are very loud. They take the attention. Fights are about, you gotta stop drinking. How could you do this? And so, right? So it really takes up the room, the emotional room, so to speak. But once it's gone, there might be still problems that it's hard to kind of accept that it was there all along. So noticing, first of all, know that when someone is in recovery from drugs or alcohol, their brains are recovering. It takes time for a brain to heal. It can heal, but something like their reward system is shot by drugs, right? It's hijacked by drugs. So in the months after someone gets sober, the world gets really boring. Like it's like the lights have dimmed in their brain and everything's like, ugh, like so, and various problems, but they could be irritable, they could be bored, they could be depressed, and you're hoping to get your loved one back, and now they're like this other version that's like even worse in some ways, and you're even more scared. But know that that's part of the process. The brain is healing, your relationship is healing, and figuring out what do you need for that, right? Like if someone is depressed and their reward system is like not online, instead of yelling at them to get up and get a job, maybe talking about how you can do something bonding and fun for both of you. Like go to an amusement park, go to on a vacation and look at new environments, like get that reward system slowly healing, right? And do it together. Also get therapy, right? That person and yourself, like even couples therapy. Maybe there were fights that the drinking like covered up, but maybe that there were issues that were there all along that need to be addressed. And actually, if they aren't addressed, they might be triggers for using, right? If someone is like, there's a conflict or strong emotion or shame, anger, or something that is a trauma that's brings up strong feelings, maybe it also brings up the urges to use again, right? And so addressing the root cause, or the wound that the alcohol was a band-aid for, like really treating the wound makes sense. So those are the 6, based on the research, those are 6 things that loved ones can really do to make a huge difference. 1, making effective treatment more accessible, easier. 2, reinforce that healthy recovery behavior. 3, communicate objectively and kindly using I statements. 4, preparing for overdose, especially for opioid addictions. 5, really paying attention to your own well-being and what this is like for you and your own mental health. And find community too. That's a huge thing. And 6, noticing if there's mental health or relationship problems that are new in the recovery stage or were there to begin with. So I hope this was helpful. I'm so excited for season 7. I'm going to get some really good guests on, and I want to listen to you and what you want to hear. So please tell me. You can just comment on this episode and say, I want to hear more of this. And again, if you are in recovery or you have a loved one in substance use recovery, it's not just for alcohol. It's actually specifically for drugs, So if you or someone you love is in recovery and you're interested in learning more about the study that we're running, supporting loved ones of people in addiction recovery, check the link on the show notes. So the description of this podcast, I should have the link for you to check it out. Only 15 spots, so get on that. And I'll see you next week. By accessing this podcast, you acknowledge that the host of this podcast makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information purposes only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast and any and all content or services available on or through this podcast are provided for general, non-commercial, informational purposes only, and do not constitute the practice of any medical or any professional judgment, advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and should not be considered or used as a substitute for the independent professional judgment, advice, diagnosis, or treatment of a duly licensed and qualified healthcare provider. In case of a medical emergency, you should immediately call 911. The host does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast. And information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. Thank you.